2007 started off with a huge handicap. During the winter and spring, we only had 25% of our normal rainfall. These dry growing conditions really impacted on the canopy production in the vines and also on the amount of fruit that they produced. The low rainfall also meant a very early start to the irrigation season, so we used a lot more water in that season than we do normally, and the warm conditions that prevailed all the way through the whole growing season led to an early start to the harvest. The warm but not too hot summer was a bit of a godsend in the fact that even though it didn't have a lot of leaf protection, didn't get a lot of sunburn either, so that was quite helpful to the quality of the fruit, and there was no other real impacts on the vines throughout the ripening period, except for one little shower of rain that we got at the end of January, which split even more of the remaining fruit that we had on the vine. So this led to, overall, our intake was down to about 40% of our normal intake off our vineyards, which was quite low indeed, and that gave us a much reduced pool of fruit which we could blend our Shiraz with. The fruit that came in, it showed little ill effect from the tough growing conditions they've been exposed to, and as such we could still produce some fantastically flavoured and some really high quality base wines from that vintage. The wines that produced had some really bright primary fruit, some very crisp and vibrant acidity, and some lovely, nice and ripe and rich tannins. We had them in a lot of new oak early on during the maturation period. During the end of its maturation period, we could see that the wines had had enough oak, and so we pulled them out a little earlier than we do in other seasons. That allowed us to get some of the 2008s into some of the oak earlier than we would have otherwise, and that had a good impact for that vintage as well. The resulting wines from 2007 were very elegant, very fruit driven, very crisp and very well structured. They did have a little bit of a lull about 5 or 6 years old, where for some unexplicable and a reason only this wine knows, it looked a little bit clumsy and the fruit and the tannins had sort of started to come apart from each other. A couple more years of maturation brought them back in together, and the wines are drinking very beautifully right now. Still a very vibrant colour. Just started to get a little bit of brick red through the hue. On the nose, still lots of spice. Some lovely plums and mulberries. Some little toast and a bit of charcuterie as well. The zingy acidity that has always been there is still there, as you can tell by the way my mouth's puckering up at the moment. The tannins are quite firm and very long at this stage. Wine still has very good focus. Red fruits still sitting at the front. There's some lovely primary cherry and plum fruit sitting right at the front of the palate. So above all, wine that was comes from a vintage which was quite difficult during the growing season has come together beautifully well in the end.